For the latest top tips, reviews and advice, please subscribe below.
Hello and welcome to Attwoolls Outdoors with me, Mike. Today I'm giving you kind of a pitching / tutorial video about how you're going to pitch your Telta County 8. So what we'll do by starting is we're going to get the old tent out of the bag, position it on our pitch as we see fit. So one thing I would probably recommend doing actually as well, if you haven't already, is I'd probably recommend purchasing the footprint ground sheets for the tent. The reason I say this mainly is because what you find is it helps you position yourself on the pitch, more importantly, but also what it would happily do is it will give you an idea about where you want to position yourself on the pitch, but keeps the base of the actual tent, which is here, physically sewn in, clean and dry. So what we'll do is unravel the tent itself. Basically, because I'm pitching it up and down straight away, I'm not going to use a footprint because I know nice clean grass, haven't got to worry about where it's going. It's lovely and lawn, there's no actual stones or rocks or anything underneath that I'm going to worry I'm going to sort of penetrate the ground sheet with. So there's all these little things that a footprint can negate. Plus, with all the space in the world here, I don't really matter, it doesn't matter how close to the edge of the pitch actually that I am. Okie dokie. So what we've done is laid it out, and then we're basically going to peg the main four corners, so the back two and the front two where the ground sheet is sewn in. Now, just for the sake of the video, I'm going to use my own little peg, so it's not the official ones that come with it, but it should hopefully give you a bit more of an idea about it. With the pegging points, I'd always recommend basically putting it out as far as it can go on the point, and when you insert the peg into the ground, angle it at about a 45-degree angle away from the tent itself. The reason you do that is that when you get tension on it, it's not pulling it directly up, it's almost pulling it back into its place. Same with this. So we've done I do the back first because it's nice and easy to get it nice and square. We can pull against it, make sure we're dead straight, and again just insert the peg nice and easily. We'll then do the front two. So what we're doing now is the front two where the ground sheet is physically sewn in. So that way we can then sort of kind of pull against it, get ourselves in almost a perfect kind of rectangle, and we're sort of then tensioning off each point. And do the same again. So again, give a bit of a pull, bit of a tension, make sure we're kind of precious where we want to be. Brilliant. At this point now what we'll do is we'll flip the front part over. It depends on how it's kind of been packed away, but what I would recommend is using our packing methods I'll show you later on in this video. We'll go through that. And it's also worth mentioning that we've done a separate review video as well, so you want to see a bit more in depth and in detail about it, by all means check that out. Now with the front point, what I'm looking to do here is get it dead in line. So again, we're trying to create that perfect rectangle, have the pegging point pulling off from the back, but keeping it in line, so when we come to do this other side, we are still in the right location. It's always worth kind of trying to get it as square as possible. You can sort of adjust pegging points after the fact, but I do find that before the tent's inflated is the best way to kind of get anything kind of almost ship shape. So now we've kind of got our tent nice and neatly out, so what we're going to then do is grab our manual pump. Manual pump comes supplied with it as standard, but you can buy an electric pump to do the work for you as well. Before we start pumping, I'll make sure that the side door on the other end is open. Reason being is, what you'll find is if it's not, it'll be almost like a little vacuum, and you'll never be able to get, it'll be pumping air into the actual tube, but it never will kind of sort of fully stand up. So by having that open, it just makes life a lot easier. The valve on the tent is what we call like a Boston valve, so it's got kind of like a screw thread directly to it. So what you might have to do is just kind of screw the big part in and then leave the little front cap off so you can insert the pump into it. Naturally, because it's kind of like a plastic thread and valve, what I would also recommend doing is basically give it a little bit of countersink first, just to make sure that you're not sort of cross-threading the valve itself. It can be commonly done. What you then do find is you get very much like almost like a slow leak. Once the sort of each beam's inflated, so we'll do each beam to 7 psi, there's a pressure gauge on the actual pump itself, which kind of lets you know obviously where you are with it. What I'm going to do is I've sort of started pumping almost the middle side of the door. So you see, reason being is it helps to let air in. Also, because it's the middle of the tent, what you also find is that you're not putting any more or less tension on the fabric. So as it kind of pops into shape, it makes life a lot simpler and easier. I always recommend when you're sort of pumping as well, is to go to the full up and down of the actual height fit. Typically pumps you sometimes find when there's sort of dual action, it does kind of get a bit strenuous on the lower back. So that's where I almost kind of prefer getting a good position directly over the top of it, keep your back straight as you're pumping and let kind of your arms do the work, and if need be, a little bit of the legs. You can of course buy an electric pump that can do the pumping for you. Generally tend to be a little bit slower depending on how fit you are, but obviously you sort of sit back, relax, let it do its work for you, and because it's got a digital display, once it gets to the right pressure, it kind of just naturally cuts off, so you haven't got to worry about it. It's always worth mentioning as well, when you're with the actual manual pump, you'll only get a pressure reading once you're doing the pump's actually working. This is basically because the Boston valve that this tent has a sort of a seal to it. So it's only as air is kind of going directly into the actual valve itself that you get backwards pressure, and that's what then reads into the valve itself. Sometimes you can find you've got almost like a very slow kind of pump, and that will then give you a bit more of an indication of actually where the dial is. Often you can sometimes find that the pump will sort of flip up and down. Failing that, it can sometimes not work at all. In that case, it's just a case of replacing the actual gauge on it, which is kind of a fairly simple thing to do. So again, we're going full pressure, so full 7 psi with these. Once I've done the 3 tubes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go round and just kind of help those tubes up into position. Reason being is you want to make sure they're sitting in the right place. Like I said, because we left this side door open, we can go in and just give it a little helping hand up. Sit that in position, nice and easily. What I always take a tendency of doing as well, just give the little bottom of the beams a little bit of a kick out as well. It's just making sure they are sitting in the right place and they're not kind of you know, bowing at any point, or just kind of keeping it tidy. And then we've done that, so we're sort of sitting in the right place now. We can move on to the back beam and then finally the front beam. Again, if you've got a second pair of hands, you can also share the pumping, just make your life a little bit easier. Share the load as such, makes life a bit simpler in that sense. Alternatively, one person can take the brunt of it, and the other person can probably most likely entertain the kids or whatnot. We have also done almost like a sped up version of this video, so if you don't want to sit here and see me pumping and talking the whole time, we've got like I think it's like sort of maybe ×4 video or something like that, just showing you the principle of it rather than sort of more in-depth kind of tutorial style as well, so you can have a look at that. Again, this back beam might just need a little bit of a hand up. Oh, there you go, sorted. And then by no means least, got this front tube. The joys of actually kind of the Boston valve in general is that you find that when you're pumping, you have less resistance, basically because it's got a slightly bigger aperture to allow air to go in, and you're not kind of forcing, you know, a whole sort of 2-litre pump through a small little part. So that's one of the things I do find with the Boston valve in general. And it's something you see on kind of airbeds or most kind of anything mostly inflatable will tend to have that kind of valve, so it's very reliable. And you know, if for some reason you were to lose or anything like that, it's, you know, fairly inexpensive to get hold of as well. So there is kind of that kind of benefit to it all. So you can also look to upgrade not only for electric pump, but there are a range of manual pumps on the market if you want to kind of still stick to a manual option. But there are, of course, now rechargeable electric pumps where you press a button and does it for you, so you haven't got to worry about having a 12-volt adapter to your sort of mains car. I mean, normally it's about 5 meters of lead in there anyway. And again, the Boston valve in particular is one of the most common valves you see on the market. So there always will be an adapter or a pump that's going to suit. Up we come. Beautiful. So we're looking quite square, which is our ideal situation. What I want to do now is I want to basically start by pegging the main storm straps in the front and the back, just to get that roof looking tense. And again, if you've got wind coming from a certain direction, that's also a big benefit as well. Now, like I said, pegs, I'm using my own pegs just for the purpose of the video. The ones come a bit sort of fairly good, but I'd always recommend buying some additional ones depending on the ground you're going onto, because you find rock pegs or even you sort of softer ground, you're better off of having some sort of V-shaped pegs which are going to take a bit more of the brunt. I'm just going to work our way around. So, done the back 2 straps, and straight away you can tell from the roof section already. Before I go any further, I'm going to basically zip this side door shut, just to make sure we're not overstretching the door. So that way we're not suddenly finding that there's too much, you know, the fabric's being pulled too tautly. And then again, with the storm straps in general, you want to kind of make sure you come directly out. Again, inserting the peg at a 45-degree angle away from the tent, just to make sure it's got a bit more bounce and braces to it. You don't want to kind of overstretch it as well. There's no point you want to take it as far as possible. You don't want to be pulling it down so it bows the leg out. The idea is you have it as long as it possibly can be, just so when you pop it in, it's stopping from anything going directly backwards. What we can look to do now is just then do the bottom base pegs. So the joys of this actually is the bottom pegging point itself pegs the base as well as actually the main strap. And you've got a little tension point located there as well, so we can go work our way around. These kind of mud flaps sit on inside of it. With the front door, I'd always recommend kind of pulling it directly in. You want to kind of cross these pegging points over if you're not going to use the door. So you're pulling that directly in. Again, with this one, I'd cross it back over itself, just to give that tension to the door. I'm going to leave it unpegged for the time being because I'm going to want access to that lately. And again, we're going to try and keep that in line with the seam and go directly down. But it's these little things, again, just help to make the tent sit nicer. You don't want any kind of crinkled fabrics. You want everything kind of directly in line. If you want to kind of go a bit more, there is an extra pegging point at the base of the tent you can pull and get a bit more tension out of that as well. Also, what you find is if you're on windier weather, that additional pegging point on the base is not a bad thing to peg, just to kind of give yourself a bit more bounce and braces. You know, it's almost like double pegging something as well. It sort of shares the strain and the weight of it. We're just sort of slowly working our way around the tent, keeping it neat and tidy. Again, when we're doing the main guide points, we're just following the seam it follows down from, just to get ourselves dead square. We can got a little bit of adjustment on the bottom, so we can kind of adjust the sort of straps directly in a bit. Needs a bit more of a pegging point's coming out a little bit more. Let's just put that back in there. Okay. Perfect. Okay, well, thankfully these have all been kind of pre-tensioned from last time, so I haven't got to adjust them too much. Apart from that one, see. And then we've got a little, again, pegging point on this side over here. This is basically for the ventilation point, just to have a little bit more airflow into it. Helps to circulate the air inside the actual bedroom. And we've got 2 last ones over here. So again, we're pretty much there or thereabouts really. So very simple, very easy to pitch. As you can see, one person can do it happily on their own. The more people, the merrier it may be. It just takes life a bit easier. There's a point when obviously it's up and I've not sort of finished going off. You can almost put your stuff inside of it and start that idea straight away. But up, ready, set for a holiday. What we'll do now is I'll move on to packing it away and showing you how to get it back into its bag with space as well. So now we're going to pack down the County 8 and kind of do the same sort of thing we almost did in the pitching. So just basically what we did in reverse. So what we'll start by doing is basically leave the main, basically 4 6 corners pegged in, the ones we first pegged in. So by doing this, we're going to work our way around. If you have got the wind coming from a certain direction, I would probably recommend just leaving it pegged in that area. Just a bit more support, belts and braces if you will. I mean, admittedly the tent is in air, so it's got a bit of give to it naturally anyway. So it's got quite a good, robust structure. So you don't got to worry about it too much. But we're just going to work our way around. Now, if you can, I would probably slacken off some of the guy lines. We want to keep the side door open here as well, just so we can obviously allow any internal air escape. With the door between the living area and the front canopy area, what I've done is left the mesh fully open and haven't sort of Velcro the ground sheet in place, just to kind of really allow air to flow in and out of there without it getting trapped. That's all we're about doing really, we're worried about is managing the overall airflow of the tent itself. Make sure it's nothing too extravagant from that point of view. And with the internal doors, feeling like the bedrooms, what I've done is actually brought them around just about 1/3 shut. So 2/3 open to allow air to go in. What we want to do now is deflate the beams from the back towards the front. So the reason we're doing this is so as the air comes out, the fabric goes down and basically pushes all that internal air forward towards that front door, which we've kind of left open. Like I said, by leaving the side door open as well, it's going to help any sort of air inside the living area escape. And it's again, why you sort of do your door, leave the doors open 1/3, a 1/3 shut, 2/3 open. Just that way the material is not necessarily bunched up, and you're not sort of having to then, when you come to fold later on, deal with this big sort of fist of fabric. Instead, by laying it flat, the air can escape through the door. But more importantly, when you come to fold it, we're not having any sort of ties and knots or anything into it. So one thing that may be worth doing as well is just open this front door up a little bit, just for the last deflation point. Reason being is just it allows all of the air to escape, or as we have here, pegging point goes. Again, we're just trying to manage that airflow forward. So, let's re-zip that door back up. Lovely. So, we've left the back 2 corners pegged in. The front 2 corners are pegged in where the ground sheet is sewn in. And what I'm going to do now is basically flip this open canopy, well, this closed canopy, over the front. So when we come to sort of fold it, we're only kind of folding where the ground sheet's sewn in. Because we left the kind of corners pegged in, what we also find is it gives us a bit more tension. So we can try to pull it against it and it holds in place. So all these little things make life a lot easier. Now, because the valves are also located all along that side over there, what we're going to do is hold the tent from this side across. So as we kind of fold it round, all of the air is being pushed out towards the valves and make work there. So again, a second pair of hands will make life a little bit easier. For the fold, we want to go about the same size as the bag. So you can use the pub as a guide, or failing that, usually about 50 centimeters, there or thereabouts. With each fold, what I'd recommend doing is give it a fold, and then we're just going to work from the back of the tent towards the front. Again, this is helping forcing the air out towards the front door. And each time it's also pressing the air out the tubes out that side over there. I always kind of make a point as well, as we kind of go to the point along and we find there's a tube located, just run your hands along the beam a little bit. It just naturally kind of helps to get any external air in that main tube kind of out from it. Last thing you want is obviously any air to be trapped at any point in the tent. Let's just working our way across. Always get the kids involved by doing some sort of like teddy bear rolls or any kind of general rolls. Get a bit of Lara Croft-esque. Right, so we've got the last little fold again. I'm just going to make sure I'm patting down where the tube's located, pulling the fabric in a little bit more as well, flinging the guy loads into the centre of it to kind of deal with it. Again, just pressing down on the tubes. You will notice if you don't do that, suddenly you might find a bulge of air that's got trapped. And then what we'll do, we'll flip that last pegging point over. I was a big fan of going a bit narrower than you think you need to go. The reason being is that you find that as you come to the rolling stage, it always naturally tends to kind of bulge a bit. So again, by doing this, you're just making sure that it's sitting in the right place. You can always re-roll it at a later date if need be. You can always do like a rough roll and then do like a final roll to finish it off. What I want to do is also position the bag ready to roll it directly into it. With the ties, half the tie underneath the end, so it's half out, half in. And that way when we come to roll it up, we kind of finish on that final tie. Now with the first roll, you want to get as tight as you possibly can. Get really kind of tough, get a good sort of squeeze onto it. As you're going to roll it, I'm just rolling with one hand and rotating with the other, so sort of right, left, right, left. Each time I'm kind of keeping my weight directly over the top of it, push the fabric back into the corner where we've done the fold, just to make sure it sort of stays even on the side, so we're not getting one side being more bulgy than the other. And because we're rolling it from the back towards the front, all of the internal air is going out towards that front door, which we left open. You can see how much air is still kind of left in it. And then we should be in the right position. There you go. Ties in place. Good to go. Tie a little bow for it. And from there we can pretty much flip the bag over the top. Zip down either side. And then we roll it into bag. So again, I haven't got to bear the weight of it for getting in the bag. There's some ties in place. We're good to go. Simple as that. Bob's your uncle, finish your aunt, sorted. So we've got some compression straps as well, so we can always compress it down if we really wanted to. But yeah, simple, easy, not too strange to pack away. Can be done by one person and fits for one person, as you can see. So all done and dusted. That's obviously the County 8. For more information on the video, check the link below. It'll take you through to things like pack sizes, fold dimensions, individual features, bundle deals we've got on the actual tent as well. There's a whole collection of things to look at. But on the whole, hopefully it's been helpful, and we look forward to seeing you again next time in our Attwoolls Outdoors tutorial videos, review videos, or pitching videos.